What we've seen today in the defence ministerial meeting that's been going on in Brussels is an agreement that's been signed between John Healey, the Secretary of State for Defence, and his Estonian counterparts, that the forward battle group from the UK that is deployed and has been deployed for some time, it will have the rest of its brigade at various levels of readiness behind it, ready to deploy forward should the threat materialise markedly.
The former head of the British Army. Hello to you, Lord Dannatt.
John, good afternoon. Good
As
to be
always,
with you again.
It's great to have you back, Richard. Can I ask you, first of all, while we wait for the final confirmation of the apparent death, the apparent killing of Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, what are your thoughts on this big moment?
Well, if it is true, and frankly, neither you nor I know whether it's true, but the evidence would seem to be gathering that the body that the IDF discovered was Yahya Sinwar, then it is actually extraordinarily significant. We know that individual is the de facto leader of Hamas, and of course it's Hamas that's been leading the fight against Israel, particularly since the 7th of October. And we have to remember that Hamas, well, like Hezbollah, their sworn objective is the eradication of the Israeli state. So it's not surprising that under Netanyahu, the Israelis and the IDF in particular are determined to root out the leadership, the equipment, the capability, and the fighters of both Hamas and Hezbollah. So if it is Sinwar, it is significant.
Yes, I mean, we wait for that final confirmation. I mean, Sky News, for example, as I speak, is reporting that Israel is notifying the Pentagon of Sinwar's potential death. So again, short of a final confirmation, when that moment comes, one would expect to hear from the leadership of Israel and others too. But, you know, the presumption seems to be very, very strong now. Meanwhile, Lord Dannatt, the capabilities in terms of intelligence gathering and targeting of Israel has now become it's widely known and just seems to be so accomplished. Mossad, military intelligence, and so on.
Yes, you're right. I think as this operation has continued, their intelligence picture from all kinds of sources has increased. Of course, in sharp contrast to the intelligence failure prior to the 7th of October, many people, including in Israel, were extraordinarily surprised that they didn't see what was coming and that which happened on the morning of the 7th of October. But in contrast to that, their intelligence picture has become much more precise, much more focused. And we've seen significant leadership targets being killed, being targeted and killed in both southern Lebanon and in Gaza. And of course, if Israel wants to achieve its aim of removing the threat to its own security from Hamas and Hezbollah, they've got to go for these leadership figures, as well as the fighters, as well as their capability, as well as their equipment. And particularly, of course, in the case of Hezbollah, the vast number of rockets and missiles that Hezbollah still has that can threaten the length and breadth of Israel territory.
Right. Okay. So we wait for further developments on that front. Now, I am keen to get your thoughts on what is happening today in Brussels and the news, Lord Dannatt, of a British Army brigade being put on high alert for deployment to Estonia's border with Russia. Now, how significant is this? Because there are British troops already on alert for such a deployment.
Yes. For quite some time, we, the British, as a result of NATO agreements and to an extent bilateral agreements, have had forward deployments in Estonia and Poland as part of NATO's overall posture to deter further aggression by Putin's Russia. What we've seen today in the defence ministerial meeting that's been going on in Brussels is an agreement that's been signed between John Healey, the Secretary of State for Defence, and his Estonian counterparts, that the forward battle group from the UK that is deployed and has been deployed for some time, it will have the rest of its brigade at various levels of readiness behind it, ready to deploy forward should the threat materialise markedly. Now, make sure we're talking the same language that people understand. A battle group is between 500 and 600, let's say, could be 700 or 800. The rest of the brigade group could be around about 5,000. Probably an additional couple of battle groups supported by artillery, attack aviation, attack helicopters, and other military capability. So there's no question at the present moment that we are making that forward deployment. But what John Healey has signalled and agreed with Estonia is that should the threat increase on the Estonian border, and I was in Estonia not that long ago and met a lot of very worried Estonians, Latvians, Lithuanians, Poles, Swedes, and everybody else who are very concerned about potential aggression by Russia. So this is part of NATO's deterrence, and it's a sensible articulation of a plan that behind that forward deployed battle group is the remainder of a brigade. And that makes a significant contribution to our overall deterrent posture.
Yes, it's also reported that we're to see more coordination, closer coordination between different NATO partners on missile defence, which I suppose makes nothing but sense, especially when we look at what's been going on in the Middle East in recent days and weeks.
Well, you're right. I mean, if NATO is anything, and if NATO has been anything over the years, it is as a vehicle for coordination and integration of individual member states' military capability. So in a sense, what's been announced today is a restatement, a refocusing, a sharpening, if you like, of some of the existing agreements that have been in place for quite some time. But as you're suggesting, and I think any analyst would agree, it makes enormous sense for military nations in the West facing in a deterrent way potential aggression from Russia to be as well coordinated together, both in terms of ground activity, in missile defense activity, in anti-aircraft defense activity, all those kind of areas. The greater degree of coordination, integration, achievable possible, only makes military sense.
But the conversations like this will just, I suppose, highlight concern. And you, Lord Dannatt, have been high on the list of those who have been concerned about the state of our UK military forces. They've been described as, over the years, having been hollowed out.
Well, John, you're right, and this, of course, is the other side of the coin. It's fine for us to have a battle group in Estonia, have the remainder of the brigade behind it to back it up. But then you've got to ask the question, what is further behind that? And that is where the total quantum of our military capability concerns people. That the size of our army is just hovering around 70,000, could even go below 70,000. The number of main battle tanks we have is not only a fraction of that which it was. And it gets to the whole issue of the thinking behind this strategic defence review. And the challenge to the Treasury, the challenge to the government, how much are you prepared to put into UK defence?
An urgent question. Well, Chancellor, wrestling with this and so many other questions now. Lord Dannatt, thank you. This is Times Radio.